Today I'm going to be discussing my home park, Six Flags New England, and this is going to be a top 10 best roller coasters of the park list. And I'll be honest with you, Six Flags New England has a very good variety of rides. Now they could use a couple more coaster types like a launch coaster and an indoor coaster, because right now they don't have an indoor roller coaster, but what they have is still pretty amazing. So let's just cut the nonsense and start off this list. Number 10 is Goliath, and this is unfortunate because this ride, in my opinion, has so much potential. It's a Vekoma inverted boomerang, and the models themselves have some good elements to them. Now, that first drop, where you're facing straight down, is extremely intense, no matter what row you're sitting in, and the backwards drop just feels like you're falling from the sky. However, the inversions are insanely rough, and to be honest, I could not enjoy them very much. The Cobra roll and the vertical loop, they're just going to slam your head against the restraints. And actually, one of my friends says he popped his collarbone on the ride. And recently, the ride was closed down after a cable snapped. And to be honest, I was not very surprised because the ride itself felt very unstable. It gave me a headache. It was extremely rough. There was a ton of headbanging. And I really hope they smooth it out in the future because, this could be one of the best rides in the park, to be honest with you. But right now, the drops are great, but the inversions just kill the experience. Next up is Flashback at number 9. Yeah, no, this is just another Vekoma boomerang, so there's really nothing much to say here. You can find boomerangs at pretty much every other park ever, including one at Lake Compounds, which is like a half hour away from Six Flags New England, so they're like literally everywhere. And really, this one is no different. But on the bright side, it isn't as rough as Goliath. So that's a positive. Number 8 is the Gotham City Gauntlet, a Wild Mouse coaster by Maurer, the makers of the Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket in Universal Orlando. This is your typical Wild Mouse coaster with its dips and switchbacks. The ride has its positives and negatives. What I like most about this ride is absolutely the dips. They are fun and feel pretty intense for a Wild Mouse coaster, to be honest. And I also liked its Batman theming. I thought it really helped this coaster stand out from other Wild Mouse rides, but I was not a big fan of the restraints. Now, the seats are divided by a T-bar with not a lot of padding on it, and the switchbacks really slam your thighs into it. Now, I did not enjoy being forced into that T-bar with every single turn. Now, if this ride just got some different restraints, then it would be probably one of the best non-spinning Wild Mouse coasters out there. It has the potential to be a great ride. It's got some good theming, some good drops, and it's just a cool ride to look at. It looks like a Rube Goldberg machine from far away. But I thought it was just overall. Number 7 is Catwoman's Whip. Now, this is one of the park's smaller roller coasters, and it's really nothing that special, but honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. It's pretty useful if you just ate and you don't want to ride anything too intense, which is what my friend and I did. We had just eaten and we kind of wanted to ease our way back into the bigger ride, so we rode Catwoman's Whip, and it was a fun little ride. And it's got a pretty nice setting, too. It's like in this little grassy area with lots of trees, and it goes under the trees, and it's like a little ride through the park in a way. And it's just a nice little ride, not a bad coaster for the families at all. Bring the kids, bring everybody. It's just a nice ride. Next up is Mind Eraser, the dreaded Vekoma SLC of the park. And believe it or not, this was not as bad as I was expecting it to be. Yes, it is a rough ride. And yes, the brakes really slam you into the restraints, but there's one thing about this coaster that makes it so much more tolerable. The over-the-shoulder restraints have some extra padding on them, so they are much softer than they'd normally be. So as a result, the ride is much less painful than Goliath, and you can still get a kick out of the inversions and pull some good G's on the helixes. Now, it's not a great ride. It technically, it is still pretty rough. I mean, it is a Vekoma SLC, but the padding, it just made it a lot less painful than it should have been. So to be honest, I kind of enjoyed it. That's a really unpopular opinion, I know, actually enjoying a Vekoma SLC, but it wasn't that bad. But if it wasn't for the padding, I definitely would consider it to be one of the worst rides I've ever ridden, but I just didn't think it was as bad as everybody else says it is. Coming in at number 5 is Pandemonium. This is a Gerstlauer spinning coaster, and you could find it at other Six Flags parks like Six Flags Fiesta Texas and etc. It's not very intense, but it's still a very fun ride. The way it spins just disorients you, and you'll definitely want to wait until after riding it to eat. But it is a pretty fun ride. It goes up and down and all around, and it's really worth giving a shot. But really, there's not much else to say because this is technically a clone. You can find them at other Six Flags parks, but it's still pretty enjoyable. It's a nice addition to the park overall. Number 4 is Thunderbolt, the oldest roller coaster in the park. Now, this ride does not look like much. It's an older roller coaster from the 1940s, so you'd think it would be extremely rough. I certainly didn't have high expectations for this ride. I was just looking at it thinking, wow, this thing is going to just smash me around and it's not going to be comfortable at all. But it was actually a lot smoother than I thought it would be. Now, it's nothing like an RMC or a GCI, but it's just a nice classic wooden roller coaster. It's got a nice feel to it. And you just shoot through the layout just like the name suggests. You're just like a thunderbolt through that layout. And it's a very fun ride, and I really hope it sticks around for a while. I mean, it's got a great history behind it. I enjoyed riding it overall. Taking the 3rd spot is Batman Dark Knight. This is the park's only coaster by B&M, and it's a pretty fun one. I mean, it's not the greatest B&M I've ever ridden. It does have a bit of a rattle to it. It's kind of forceless, and the Zero G roll has some headbanging, but it's got some smooth, fun, entertaining inversions, and it has a very fast pace. The layout is really exciting too, and even though it's a pretty short ride, it never really has any lines, so you could ride it like as much as you want. So if you have a flash pass and you're waiting for Superman, you could just ride Batman again and again and again. And overall, it's not a bad floorless coaster, and you can get a kick out of it. Number 2 is Wicked Cyclone, the park's RMC hybrid. And of course, like pretty much every other roller coaster by RMC, this ride is just incredible. It is packed with ejector airtime, the inversions are incredibly intense, and it is by far one of the smoothest roller coasters I have ever ridden in my entire life. The whole thing really feels like you're just flying through a cyclone. The whole coaster is so compact that you're just flying in, out, and around these wooden supports that used to belong to Cyclone, of course, and now they're used to full effect in Wicked Cyclone. The whole ride feels like just one big storm that you're passing through, and it's such an awesome experience. I can't even properly describe how awesome it is. The only way to experience it properly is to go to Six Flags New England and check it out yourself. It is that good of a ride. And, I would gladly give this the number 1 spot, but of course, I've got to give the number 1 spot to Superman the Ride. Once again, Intamin has made a phenomenal ride. This ride just kicks all sorts of ass from start to finish. When you're going up that first lift hill, let me tell you, you're getting an amazing view of the Connecticut River as well as the rest of the park. There's no parking lot to stare at, none of that. It's just a beautiful view, and it really adds to just how great this ride is. When you get to the top of the lift hill, nothing beats just raising your arms and letting your stomach just launch up into your throat as you drop more than 200 feet. And this drop just sends you plummeting to the ground. It may not be a Giga Coaster, but that drop certainly feels like one. Then you go through some helixes, some airtime hills, and you even go through this foggy tunnel, which is just awesome. It's got this mist effect, and the whole ride is spectacular, and I can definitely see why it's gotten so many Golden Ticket Awards for Best Coaster. It just blew me away the first time I rode it, and it always blows me away every time I ride it. I just never get sick of this ride, and it's even more intense with the VR since really you can't tell how high you're falling. You're just looking over Metropolis in the admittedly mediocre graphics, but still you really get immersed in it, and you really don't know how high you're falling, and it's just an incredibly fun ride. It's like riding it blindfolded. So this is definitely my favorite coaster that I have ridden at this park so far. And that is my top 10 list for Six Flags New England. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments. Did you agree with some of them? Did you not agree? Which one is your favorite? And if you like this list, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'm just getting started around here, and I'd like to share some more experiences with you guys. So this is Theme Park Crazy, and I'll catch you guys later.